Welcome to a deeply personal episode of More Than Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Kyjuan Brown. And today I stand by the Slave River in Ghana, a place of profound significance to many of us in the African diaspora. This episode is part of my journey of self-discovery, tracing my roots back to where my ancestors walked, lived, and suffered. Having discovered that I am 24% Ghanaian, I've returned to embrace the land of my forebears, to connect with the history of my people, and to honor those who came before me. Hey guys, before we get started on this episode of More Than Medicine, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And click that notification bell down the bottom so you can be notified of any new content as it's released.
Of our past is essential to the establishment of our personalities and our identities as Africans. That's a quote from Haile Selassie. From Marcus Mosiah Garvey Jr., actually borrowed by Bob Marley. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery, none but ourselves can free our minds. On this land, among the people of Benin, Togo, and Ghana, we have this common proverb. It stated, until the tales of the hunt is told by the lions, the hunt will always glorify the hunters. All I'm trying to say is that Africans are struggling to tell their own narrative. The history of what our ancestors endured across oceans to the New World is not being well spoken about. Many of us are struggling to tell it. For that reason, a lot of Africans are traveling across oceans to Africa, where most of the history that is hidden from them is. Many of the Africans want to come to Ghana and its neighboring nations because they serve as one of the places that the ancestors used a lot. In the days when Ghana used to be called Gold Coast, or before the name Gold Coast, we had a very big vast land. Our ancestors fought among themselves for territorial expansion. Due to that, they had victims of wars. But then at that time, they were never enslaving themselves, but rather they inducted each other into various cultures. Africans practice a system called the indigenous indentured servitude. It wasn't a form that will actually enslave people, but then they were inducted. Let's practice the same culture. It went on like that for some decades, until 1471, the very first group of Europeans arrived here. The Portuguese arrived under the pretense of trading with us in gold, ivory, pepper, spices. By so, they requested for a land, and they gave them. At Elmina, they built the very first ever castle or dungeon. Castillo de Elmina, or St. George's Castle, was finished by 1482. It went on like that. They traded with us gold, ivory, pepper, spices. It got to a point, one of their kind, in the 1500s, Bartolomeo de las Casas got to Africa, and he had an idea. He suggested to his people that Africans are very much stronger than indigenous Americans. So let's move them instead of using the indigenous Americans. They are not doing well. They kept dying. So Africans are much stronger. Let's move them. They bought into the idea and started with the trade. Our ancestors were hunted down like animals. They forced them into chains and shackles, kidnapped from their own home, made to walk for over 400 miles to the southern belt of Ghana. Akosia Adoma Pebi is a renowned historian here in Ghana, professor of the University of Ghana, Legon. In her book entitled The History of Indigenous Slavery in Ghana from the 15th century to the 19th century, she made us aware that out of the many slave markets that we might have had here in West Africa, from Benin to Gambia, Gold Coast alone had about 63 of the slave markets. We have Salaga, Sampa, Janani, Ketekrache, Bonomanso, Techiman, Picoro, Assin Manso, the dungeon at Cape Coast Elmina, all the way to Atoko Township in Volta region. These are few of them. There was a British historian called W.E. Ward. He was traveling during the same era. In his book entitled The Short History of Gold Coast, he made us aware that out of the many slave markets that I've mentioned, 2 of them played a significant role. Historically, we have Assin Manso and that of the Salaga slave market. The distance between the 2 slave markets is over 400 miles, a journey of over 653 kilometers. Our ancestors walked through it all. To cover the journey, they went through the Mole National Park. They were being fed by animals. These animals were feeding on them, so they decided to protect them. Protecting them, they went into the chains and shackles. The captives who showed signs of weakness were pulled out They tied them to trees, gave them multiple whips. Their backs were whipped. The blood that oozed out of them got the animals attracted. As the animals moved towards them, they moved the rest out of the path. They succeeded, but we lost so many lives. They then continued the journey and met a river called the Pra River. It was a huge, fast-flowing river. They got there, and so many of the ancestors got drowned. All the people who got drowned, they were buried just at the bank of the river. They then continued to arrive here at Assin Manso. When they got here, they were totally weak, hungry, dirty, and very, very skinny. It was here that they saw the need for them to be fed, not because they were hungry. They had to feed them because they were looking too skinny. No buyer wants such a person. So they took the idea of feeding them. Whilst feeding them, they were looking into the chains and shackles. For those men who had their hairs and beards bushy, they were being shaved off with broken bottles and knives. After that, they forced their mouth open. With a device called speculum oris, they counted their teeth, the number of teeth they have in there, helped them to put them into their various age groups before walking them down the river for their final bath. Before we head there, we have here the ancestral graveyard. In this graveyard, we have the remains of Madame Crystal from Kingston, Jamaica, Samuel Carson from New York City, United States, and the last one was brought back from Barbados by the Prime Minister of Barbados, Her Excellency Mia Amomote, in 2019. 1998, the very first two bones were brought to this land. Crystal was a captive. She was moved from Ghana all the way to Jamaica. They got to Jamaica and she wouldn't eat anything. Embarking on a hunger strike, she was caught in the act, so they forced her to eat. They used the chisel and hammer method on her. Because her jaws were tightly closed, they knocked the teeth out with the chisel and hammer. They placed a funnel, they dished the food into the funnel and pushed it down the throat. That way she survived for them not to lose their money. But she was a strong woman. Each time she is forced to eat, she put the fingers in the throat and she throws everything up. She continued and died in the process. Her dying wish, according to oral history, was to be brought back to the motherland. 1998, they flew her bones together with the bones of Samuel Carson back to Accra, Ghana, and were moved to this site. Carson was one of the very first group of African Americans to serve in the U.S. Navy. He died and wasn't given a befitting burial. So as part of that journey, they brought his bones back. When they got to Accra, they moved them by road. They got to this town called Anomabo. The road was blocked. The youth told the leaders that none of these ancestors left here on buses. They were not even given the privileges of flying in an airplane. They went at the bottom of a ship, crossed oceans to the New World. You should have shipped their bones back. The same channel they took out of this place, they should return the same way. But then since they didn't do that, they gave them a boat. From Anomabo, they picked the bones on the boat across the ocean to the dungeon at Cape Coast. Cape Coast Castle has this door called Door of No Return. It simply means once you move through it, there is no hope of you returning back home. It was true that the ancestors who went through that door never returned, but the bones of Crystal and Samuel, when they arrived at the back of that door, they pushed it open and they got them through to make the door a door of return. And that's how come we have these bones buried here. In 2019, we celebrated 400 years of African resiliency. 1619 U.S. Virginia, the very first documented slave ship, docked there. Between 1619 and 2019, 400 years, and we celebrated the year of return. It welcomed a lot of our ancestors. From Barbados, a mass graveyard was excavated. The bones were exhumed, flown into this land to be buried there so that their souls will finally find peace. That's how come we have the third grave. If descendants of these ancestors out there in the diaspora find themselves here with ashes of their relatives, we allow them to go in there to sprinkle it all around, to put their spirit back to the soil of Africa, for them to finally find peace and rest. For those pictures on the walls, they are the people we call our freedom fighters or emancipators. Civil rights activists like Martin Luther King Jr., Harriet Tubman, we have there Malcolm X and the various ones. They are all on this wall as an acknowledgement for those who fought for the freedom of the blacks in America or out there in the diaspora. So that's why we have them here. We shall take the walk to the river where they took their last ever bath. So please follow me this way. The very last place the ancestors took their last bath is down there. There are two main rivers here, the river called Donkonsio and the other one called the Ochi River. Donkonsio literally means the slave's river. So the Akan word for slave is Donko. They took our ancestors this way for their last ever bath. Donkonsio has its source from this same community. It flows up there from the mountains, gently joining with the Ochi River. Ochi means something that could grab. When they brought our ancestors here, they were not allowed to go to the Ochi River because it moves very fast and swiftly. They were scared the river will wash away the captives and then they will lose everything. But that wasn't the case. They took them and sent them to the Donkonsio. That place is very calm. It's a river that is very much powerful, but then it doesn't flow very much. So they kept them in there. Whilst they were there, they couldn't use their hands because of the chains around their wrists. They even added a metal ball to the chains around their ankles to hold them still, preventing them from escaping. Whilst they were there, they were cleaning each other. They would get closer to each other and clean themselves up. But then when the people saw them doing that, they thought they were actually trying to plot an escape. So they separated them. After separating them, they went ahead to use the ichi bamboo leaves as a form of brush to scrub them. Scrubbing them with it gave them bruises all over their bodies. After they got bruised, they pulled them up here, line them up around this perimeter, allow them to get dried. After they got dried, they apply shea butter or palm kernel oil on them for them to look shiny and presentable for the buyers to come here to pick. Those buyers who came here were with branding tools. All they needed to do is to pay for whoever they want, and they will move you to that particular tree, chain you to the tree. The tool will be left in the fire before selection. So then they go ahead and use the metal on you, burning your skin, leaving the mark on you to show to the public that you are now my property, before they move them to the dungeons for their last ever shipment. Those who were left in the chains here, classified in quotes as useless commodities, none of them saw the next daylight. They were all killed here. After they killed them, they dumped their bodies all around. The place is full of unmarked graveyards. For that reason, we call it the bamboo slave dumping site. Many people try to justify it, and so they call it the bamboo cemetery. I don't like that word, so I prefer calling it the bamboo slave dumping site. For the descendants of Africans, whenever they find themselves here, I no longer take them down this way. Because I feel like when I take you down this way, you are going for your last bath. Of which that's not the reason why we are here. We are back home so that we could take a first bath of return. We call it the Sankofa birthright healing bath. It is your birthright as well as mine to be born here and live the peaceful life that we have on this continent. But then unfortunately, chains and shackles took your ancestors away. When you try connecting, we also take you there. Wash your hands, get the water touching some part of your body. You don't have to take your shoes off. If you want to go in there, step in, then you take them off and step in there. Once you are done, you say some few thank yous and all some appreciation words to the ancestors. You appreciate all that they have done for us, and then we call it a day. So that's where we are going next. For those who like to come down with me, for my gentlemen, those without their shoes, let's go in.
The Slave River, or Assin Manso, holds the echoes of our ancestors' last steps on the African soil before being forced into the transatlantic slave trade. It was here they took their last bath, in these waters, where they were stripped of their freedom, but never of their dignity. Today we remember their strength and resilience, acknowledging the unspeakable hardships they endured. To my ancestors, whose spirit still lingers in these hallowed waters, I stand here as one of your descendants. I've journeyed back home, crossing oceans and continents to reconnect with you, to honor you and your memories. You endured the unimaginable, yet your strength courses through our veins. I put my feet in these waters, feeling the legacy that you've left us. We have never forgotten. We carry forward your resilience, your hopes, your dreams, and your legacy. Your legacy lives on in each one of us who have returned home, seeking to bridge the past with our present and our future.
Is it this one? one.
This
I
one?
need the
Okay. Ooh, watch out for the ants.
All right, watch out.
As I write my name on this wall, it's more than a symbolic act. It's a declaration that I've returned home, not just for me, but for all my ancestors who cannot make this journey back. This inscription is a testament to my enduring connection, a bond that time nor distance can erase. We are here, we remember, and we honor you. Our visit to the Slave River is a poignant reminder of our shared history, a call to remember, reflect, and reconcile with our past. For me and for many others who have made this journey, it's a profound step in our quest for identity and belonging. It's a reminder that our stories are intertwined with those who came before us, shaping who we are today. As we move forward, let's carry the legacy of our ancestors with pride, strength, and a commitment to healing and to understanding. This is Dr. Kyjuan Brown, reminding you that our journey through life is deeply enriched by connecting with our roots. I am indeed more than medicine. As we conclude our journey beside the Slave River, let this moment serve as a powerful testament to our collective history and resilience. This experience transcends a mere visit. It's an awakening. It's a soul-stirring call to embrace our roots and the legacy of those who endured before us. It beckons us to forge a future where understanding, healing, and unity are paramount, inspired by the unbreakable spirit of our ancestors. In this scared place, we are reminded that our lives are not just our own, but are richly woven with the threads of the past generations. Let us move forward with the wisdom and courage inherited from those who walk this path in chains, transforming their legacy into our strength and their dreams into our vision. I am Dr. Kyjuan Brown, standing at the crossroads of history and healing, urging us to carry the torch of our ancestors with honor and purpose. Let us be the architects of the future that celebrate our profound connections, our shared humanity, and our unwavering commitment to healing the wounds of the past. Together, we journey towards a horizon filled with hope and unity, embodying the essence of our shared history. I am indeed and unequivocally more than just medicine.